I mean, just look at Armored Core 6. Like, they're giving it every chances possible. PvE was great. Like, everything about this game, like, was set up for success. It was a franchise that had never really been popular, so no one knew about it yet. Because From Software came out with Elden Ring, everyone was looking forward to Armored Core 6. The PvE was great. It delivered. It had everything going for it for the PvP to take off. The reason why the PvP did not take off was because the skill ceiling was low, or is low. And it will never be high for that particular game because fundamentally, it's not made in a way where someone can express their skill a lot. It's just how it is. No matter how much they balance it. That's the difference. Like with Elden Ring, if they balance Elden Ring properly, the fundamental is solid. The fundamental is there. The fundamentals are, for those wondering, it's timing and spacing for Elden Ring. Those are strong fundamentals, and the more you get good at both of these things, the more you time your attack well and you space the receiving attacks and the attacks you're doing well, the more you're gonna get good at it. And that alone makes it so that it's rewarding and enjoyable to replay and get better at the game. Same thing for the PvP. In Armored Core, there's no such fundamentals. Armored Core had fundamentals before, but because they went a different route, they removed those fundamentals in Armored Core 6, so the game is left very barebone and very arcadey. And so it becomes more of an arcade-ish game where you just build a cool robot and you pew-pew with it. There's still a few things that could be considered skillful, but they're very few and far between compared to most games, and compared especially to older Armored Core titles, which were a lot more skillful. And it's not my opinion. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. The player retention for the PvP for Armored Core 6 is atrocious. And one could say that PvP retention has never been good for an Armored Core game. They would be right. Problem is, Armored Core 6 is not like any other Armored Core game that ever came out, because it was the first one to reach main market, to be popular with a wider audience. So the fact that Armored Core 6 did not take off PvP-wise is entirely because of the PvP, not because of its history. You gotta be fucking kidding me. And another blue here. Dude, we played that flawlessly, actually. Holy shit. Not much I did in terms of mistake there. For, like, managing the multiple people attacking. That was good. It's scary and concerning how FromSoft started casualizing their game on purpose to get more people to buy them. I hate to say it, but I actually agree. I am a bit scared. Because while they make, like, they make good improvements to their game in many regards, like, for instance, Elden Ring has like so many cool things going for it, from the jump to like the higher depth of mechanic, jump, crouch, more attacks, etc. This is amazing. We love that. And same for Armored Core. It also made like amazing strides, even if it's quote-unquote more casualized. Like the fact that they streamlined the building just a little bit, it's not necessarily a bad thing. The presentation for the whole game, the 120 FPS cap, like they did a lot of things like super right. And same thing for the bosses. The bosses are better than they've ever been. The PvE is like so good in Armored Core 6. Like, it's not like they fucked it up or something like that. It's just that here and there they make like questionable decisions where anyone with like some common sense that really understands their game would never ever make. So it makes you like question like what is going on exactly, like what is their process, who's making these calls, like what is the reason behind these decisions, what is going on. Like it really makes you wonder. Same with like when Bloodhound Step was a thing, like when Elden Ring came out, like you have to wonder, like did they play the game? Like Miyazaki didn't, we know that for sure. But that can't be the only factor. There's not just Miyazaki making this game. But like, is there really no one that understands that iframe, like at From Software, that understands that iframe just breaks the game, like so many iframe? Not just the PvP, like the PvE too. Same thing for Armored Core 6, like when the game came out, like these fucking, the mechanic for PvP, like if I was working at From Software and like, you know, we were talking about like the mechanics and whatever, like it's not the end of the world to have a game like to have a pure PvE game, right? I'm a PvPer, I love PvP. I will 100% agree that not every game need to be PvP games, and I'm sure you guys all agree with that. But when you decide to make your game PvP game, make sure the game works for PvP. Otherwise, just do a co-op game, right? Armored Core 6 should not have been a PvP game. It should have been a co-op game plus a single player game. So like they should have made it so you can place like some levels with a partner, that you can do some co-op activity. Like there's a lot of different ways you can spin it to make it enjoyable for Armored Core 6 for co-op. But the mechanics do not suit PvP. It's just not made properly for it. It does not make sense. Because it's all based around like damage rates and you can't escape the lock. So ultimately it's just not good. So no matter how you look at it, Armored Core 6 should not even have had PvP. And I want Armored Core 6 to have PvP, but like in the best case scenario, the game would be well suited for PvP, and it's not. And they can't fix it, they can't change it, because that's just the fundamentals of the game. That's how the game was made. And the reason why it's not suited for PvP is that the hard lock and the lack of turning speed makes it so that you're constantly looking at your target. And the skill in Armored Core was always to outmaneuver your enemy. And now the outmaneuvering is not completely gone like 100% of the time. Like the Armored Core 6 copers will say you can still outmaneuver. And they're right to like a minuscule extent, like super tiny, to the point where it's even disingenuous to even claim that you can outmaneuver someone when the game like is so far from the outmaneuvering potential that were previously there in other Armored Core games. Therefore, the fact that they removed these features just make the game just not suited for PvP, and they should either they should have either embraced that decision and made it so that the game just simply is not suited for PvP. So we go full throttle, co-op, single player. Let's not worry about the PvP because our game simply does not have the mechanics suited for it. Or we go PvP, we change our mechanic to make it suited for PvP. It's not gonna hurt really the single player experience because these mechanics work fine. It's not gonna hurt our sales because our sales are based off the Elden Ring success. It's just really, it's just a choice that does not make sense if you understand your product. And I'm gonna be dead honest, guys, like, it might sound arrogant, but I genuinely believe that we have a better understanding of From Software games than even the developers themselves. I genuinely believe that, and I actually don't think I'm out of line saying that. I genuinely believe that. Like, we might not be good at programming, but we understand the ins and outs of gameplay, why stuff works, why stuff does not work. And it's not a... Well, I mean, it is kind of a bit of a dig, but... Well, father of beans. Insane. Community has very good concepts of mechanics and gameplay. I mean, to be fair though, like, if it's surprising for anyone who's listening that we have a better grasp of their mechanics than they do, it's actually not that hard to understand, because we've played these games. Like, for instance, I've played Dark Souls 3 for 6 years. I've played Dark Souls 2 for a year. I played Dark Souls 1 as well. Like, I played every Souls game, but, like, I spent a lot of time, like, thinking, actively, like, thinking of understanding and improving around all these mechanics. So, technically, I spend more hours thinking about their game than the developers themselves making it. So it really only makes sense that you'd have a better understanding of the mechanics. Like, I don't think the devs play as much as we do, basically. They don't ask, like, themselves, like, questions about balance as much as we do. They do when the game comes out. They do when they make patches. They all ask themselves these questions. They all, like, do an active effort in improving the game. They do all of that. It's just that if you compare someone that has, like, how many hours did we have in Dark Souls 3? Like, freaking 5,000? Something like that. They don't have 5,000 hours in Dark Souls 3. There's no doubt. And these 5,000 hours of Dark Souls 3, for instance, they absolutely, like, of actively thinking about improving and understanding gameplay, they absolutely do translate to other Souls games that are based around the same framework, which are the fundamentals of timing and spacing. Like, other Souls games are also balanced around that. And that's actually also true for other games that are not From Software games that try to emulate what From Software does, aka your Lords of the Fallen. That's why we understand how Lords of the Fallen should be better than the Lords of the Fallen dev, because we simply have a much deeper understanding of these mechanics that they are trying to reproduce. And so you see Lords of the Fallen, and you see a lot of blatant mistakes with, like, the length of the roll, which, you know, anyone with common sense and understanding of these games who's trying to recreate it would never introduce, like, a dodge distance as long as Lord of the Fallen did, for instance. So these are just, like, examples, but I genuinely believe what I'm saying. All right, let's thank some of the people who subbed, though. I missed a few. We got Abyssal. Thank you so much for the sub. Welcome in, dude. I really appreciate. Welcome in. And then we got 6 Unit with the 5 months. Thank you so much, man. Really appreciate, guys. Okay. Now they're at the bottom. All right. And honestly, guys, I think that's also a recurring theme for a lot of games, that the community understands their game better than the devs. Not always, though. I was about to say, unless the devs are actively passionate about playing the game regularly, just like we do, which they would understand the game way better than we do, because they would understand the ins and the outs to a great level. But that is definitely not the case for for us. They definitely don't play the game as much as we do. That we know for sure. Or if they do, maybe they just play the PvE. And PvE, like, unless you... Like, here's the thing, though. Like, the PvE for their game is actually pretty damn good compared to everyone else out there. And I do think that's where their focus is. So, like, their focus is not on PvP, likely because they're not as passionate about their PvP as they are with world building, you know, everything around the game that is not PvP. And quite frankly, they don't really need much of our help with that, if I'm being honest. Like, they don't really need help to design their bosses. They don't really need feedback to, like, for their level design. Like, this sort of stuff, I think they have it figured out pretty damn well. For the PvP, though, I think they should take notes from some of the things that the community can offer, for sure. I mean, it's really basic, right? Like, you're good at what you care about. You're good at what you care about. And they clearly care about the PvE, and they're damn good at it. They don't care about the PvP, and they're alright. They're alright. Their game is, like, so good overall that maybe that carries the PvP, like, super far. I don't know if we can stop them with, like, a fireball if it travels far enough. Yeah, it's... I wasn't close enough. Well, we don't really have time to buff much, but... Oh. Oh my god, we had our chance to kill him. Well, okay, never mind. The whole